الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما وعملا بفضلك يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan for taking your time out to join the seventh lesson of our Tafsir course. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this lesson beneficial for everyone and allow me to deliver it to the best of my ability. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Inshallah, today we will be speaking about Surah Ma'un. Inshallah, Surah Al-Ma'un. No question on the thing. You recite Surah Tawbah and stop midway. Shouldn't I read Tasmiyah when I start again? Yes, you can. It's only in the beginning you don't. Okay, inshallah. So, carrying on with Surah Ma'un. So, there are different opinions regarding the cause of revelation of Surah Ma'un, why Surah Ma'un was revealed. Okay, like we normally go over the cause of revelation of the previous surahs. The reason why Surah Ma'un was revealed, there are many reasons. Okay, the first one could be the surah is regarding Abu Jahl. Okay, Abu Jahl, the enemy of the believers, the enemy of Islam, the enemy of the Muslims. Some say the first three verses are regarding Abu Jahl, and the last three verses are regarding another enemy of the Muslims. His name was Umayyah bin Khalaf. Now, Abu Jahl, being an arch enemy of the Muslims, he was always looking for any opportunity to take advantage of the Muslims. Okay, so one method, one strategy he would use was to approach people who are close to leaving the world. So those people who are close to dying, who are on the deathbed, Abu Jahl would approach them with the intention of scamming them. So he would approach them and he would present himself as a kind and caring and compassionate individual, and his intention was to deceive them. Okay, he would express concern for them that, when you die and your soon to be orphan children, they won't have nothing to do, so I can take care of your children and stuff like that. He would make false promises with them. His objective and purpose for doing such a thing was to become a trusting point for the dying person. So such people on the deathbed, they would feel at ease knowing that Abu Jahl was a chief amongst the Quraysh. Little did they know that his real intention, okay, and his purpose behind this was that he wanted to take the wealth away. He wanted to deprive the orphan children, the soon to be orphan children, from their rightful wealth. But he would come and he would trick the person on the deathbed. He would say, I would look after your children, just give me your assets and everything. Okay. And the person, obviously thinking that Abu Jahl is honest and trustworthy, they would give the remaining wealth and assets to him, and he would go against his words, okay, his promises, and he would keep everything to himself. That's why Allah says in Surah Ma'un, فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. So he is the one who pushes the orphan away. When the orphans would come to him and say, my father left this for me and that for me, Abu Jahl would push them away and he won't give them the right. So this was the reason why the surah was revealed. Inshallah, we'll go into more detail about this. Now, last lesson we touched upon the rights of Allah, okay, and the rights of others. We spoke about huququllah, the rights of Allah, so performing salah and performing other good actions, or giving zakah, okay, performing hajj. These are all rights of Allah. If you don't do it, only Allah can forgive you. There are some rights that are rights of people, rights of others, like huququl ibad. So you can't wrong a person and ask Allah for forgiveness. Allah can only forgive you after the person has forgiven you. Now, the surah has some themes, okay? I will mention some of the main themes of the surah, okay? The first main theme of the surah is the denial of the day of judgment, okay? Those who deny the day of judgment, they don't believe in the day of judgment. Another theme of the surah is those who refuse to look after the orphans and the poor. Okay, there's some people who refuse to look after the orphans and the poor. And another theme is those people who refuse to pay zakat. Another theme is those people who refuse to help people by giving minor things, minor articles. Okay, and another theme of the surah is the habits of the munafiqeen, the hypocrites regarding salah. Before we talk about the surah, inshallah, as you can see on the screen, one of our headings is virtues of caring for orphans. Okay, does anyone know the reward for for caring for an orphan? Anyone? You can use the chat option to answer, inshallah. Anyone know the reward for looking after an orphan, taking care of an orphan? Anyone? So the Prophet himself was an orphan. Okay, his mother passed away at the age of 6 when he was 6 years old. His father passed away before he was born. Someone did write on the chat option. Will be with the Prophet in Jannah. MashaAllah. Very good. Yes. So the Prophet himself being an orphan, he lost his father before he was born, and he lost his mother when he was only 6 years old. What did he say about looking after an orphan? He said, I and the one who looks after an orphan will be like this in paradise. And the narrator says, he put his index finger and his middle finger together and said, like this. This is how close you would be with the Prophet ﷺ in paradise if you look after an orphan. An orphan is someone who lost a mother, or who lost a father, or who lost both his parents or her parents. Also, Allah says in Surah Duha, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. So do not be harsh with the orphan and do not scold the beggar. Now, what are the punishments for mistreating an orphan? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Nisa, verse 10, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ أَمْوَالَ الْيَتَامَى ظُلْمًا إِنَّمَا يَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ نَارًا وَسَيَصْلَوْنَ سَعِيرًا. That surely those who unjustly eat up the wealth of the orphans do nothing but consume fire into their stomachs, and soon they shall enter a blazing fire. So eating the wealth of an orphan, what Abu Jahl was doing, is nothing but consuming fire into their stomach. And the issue regarding lawfully distributing a person's inheritance is something which is a problem even with today's society. We find that as soon as a person passes away, when a father passes away, there is a family member who tries to take all the assets and not discharge the inheritance to the rightful heirs. When someone passes away, you have to distribute the wealth of the deceased in the correct way, the way that has been stipulated and fixed by Allah. We must remember that these shares have been fixed by Allah. Okay, so it doesn't matter if the son is 2 years old and another son is 35 years old, both of them will receive equal shares. Okay, no one will get extra than what they have been fixed to get. So we spoke about the virtues of caring for orphan, and the and we spoke about the punishment for mistreating an orphan. Our next topic on the bottom of the screen, as you can see, is negligence in salah. Okay, what is neglecting salah? Okay, so Hafiz ibn Kathir, he writes in his book Tafsir ibn Kathir that there are different levels of neglect in salah. Okay, how would you fall under a person who has neglected his salah? Number one, the person who abandons salah altogether and they are careless of the prayer. They are Muslims by name. They attend some prayers like Jumu'ah every Friday, once a week, or Eid twice a year. However, they remain heedless of the 5 daily prayers. This is the highest level of neglect. Because people are just Muslim by name. Okay, by action they're not Muslims. They don't pray no salah, they only pray the Jumu'ah salah or they pray the Eid salah and that's it. They think that's enough. But the 5 daily prayers, they are heedless, they don't pray them. The second level is an individual who always forgets his salah and continues to allow it to be forgotten. However, he makes up for it or she makes up for it by performing qadha. Qadha is when you perform salah outside of its stipulated time. The next level is those people who always neglectfully delay salah until the end time. This is done out of laziness, okay? For example, to say Dhuhr starts at say 1 o'clock, and it ends at say 6 o'clock. They will pray right at the end at 5:45. Okay, they will push themselves to pray right at the end. That is another form of neglect. You should try to pray salah as soon as possible. As soon as the time comes in, you should try to pray salah straight away. Number 4 are those who do not concentrate whilst performing salah. Okay, so that they are performing salah, but they're not concentrating. The mind is somewhere else. They're thinking about games. They're thinking about this. They're thinking about food. They're thinking about other things. This is also a level of neglect in salah. Number 5 is those who perform salah by not fulfilling its pillars and conditions in the required manner. They're not performing. They perform salah, but they're not performing the actions properly. Number 6 are those who perform salah without humility and contemplation over the meaning of the verses. They pray salah, but they don't understand anything they're saying. They say Allahu Akbar, but they don't understand what Allahu Akbar means. They recite Surah Fatiha, they don't understand what Surah Fatiha means. So hopefully with this course, inshallah, you will go to such a level, inshallah, where you will understand what you are saying in salah. Okay? All the surahs we're going over are the most commonly recited surahs in salah. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Muddathir, ما سلككم في سقر قالوا لم نكن من المصلين ولم نكن نطعم المسكين. The people of paradise, they will ask the people of hell. The people of paradise, the people of Jannah will ask the people of Jahannam that what has landed you in Saqar? What has landed you in hell? Like how have you come to hell? What did you do that because of this you have landed in hell? And the people of Jahannam, what will they reply? They will reply, we were not among those who perform salah. So because of not performing salah, they have landed in hell. And then they say, وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ, and we did not feed the poor people. So this shows that neglecting salah leads to failure on the day of judgment. A person who neglects salah will be in hell. Okay. Now the Quraysh, they did not express any gratitude. Okay, Allah has shown them. Allah has given them so many bounties, but they never expressed no form of gratitude to Allah. Rather, they refused to even believe in Allah. Okay, now due to their ingratitude, they fail to recognize the Creator. Okay, and due to this, they will fall into destruction. Now, moving on, inshallah, to understanding the Surah Ma'un, inshallah. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? I'll go over all the 6 points again, inshallah. The first point was a person who abandons salah altogether. He doesn't pray salah, or she doesn't pray salah at all. They only pray the Jumu'ah salah once a week, or the Eid prayers twice a year. Okay, and other than that, they don't pray. You won't see them in the masjid, they won't pray at home even. The second level is those who they keep forgetting to pray and they don't mind forgetting to pray, and they'll pray the prayer, but they'll pray in the after its time. They will pray qada prayer. They will perform the salah outside its stipulated time. And the third one are those who they always neglect the salah and they pray salah at the end time, right at the end time. Okay, and this is done out of laziness. Number 4 is those who they don't concentrate in the salah at all. Okay, they pray salah but they're thinking about other things. Number 5, those who perform salah but they don't fulfill the pillars and the conditions properly. Number 6 are those who pray salah but they don't understand what they're saying. Okay, they don't understand anything that they do in salah. May Allah make us of those who, inshallah, can pray salah to the best of our ability, the way it was prayed by the Prophet and the Sahaba. And let's look at Surah Ma'un, inshallah. So Allah says, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. That means, have you seen the person who denies the day of recompense? This verse refers to Abu Jahl. I'll tell you why. So Abu Jahl, once an orphan approached Abu Jahl and he begged him for help. However, Abu Jahl, instead of helping him, he threw him out of his house and ordered him to never come back again. So an orphan came to the Abu Jahl and asked him for help. Abu Jahl, instead of helping this orphan, he chucked him out of the house. The orphan came crying to the Prophet ﷺ, and Prophet ﷺ comforted the orphan. Okay, Prophet ﷺ comforted the orphan and told him not to worry. And he went to Abu Jahl and he told Abu Jahl that you need to give this boy his right, because what Abu Jahl done was, Abu Jahl, when this orphan's father was alive on his deathbed, Abu Jahl, he made false promises with the orphan's father, saying that, give me your wealth, I'll look after your orphan child. Okay, there's no one else that can look after him. I will look after him. He made false promises. And the man on the deathbed, he gave him his wealth. But when the son came after his father had left this world, Abu Jahl didn't give the boy his right. He didn't give him any money or anything. And Prophet Islam warned him that. So we were speaking about the first verse where Allah says, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you seen the person who denies the day of judgment? And Allah is referring to Abu Jahl. He was the one that said to the Prophet, look, I don't really care. I've stolen the money from this man who was about to die, and I'm not going to give it back to the boy. But I don't care because you know why? I'm not scared and I don't believe in the day of judgment. Do you understand? That's what Abu Jahl is trying to say. And in this verse, Deen can refer to religion of Islam. It can also refer to the day of judgment as well. Okay, so through this verse, Allah draws attention of the reader by posing this question: "Ara'ayta, have you seen?" Allah is saying, "Have you seen the person who denies the day of judgment?" So this question, it creates a desire in the person who's reading, okay, to find out the answer of this question, like who is the person who denies the day of judgment. So it's like a question Allah's asking. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you seen the person who denies the day of recompense, the day of judgment? So Allah is creating a desire in the person who's reciting the surah to go and carry on to find out who is the person who denies the day of judgment. The next verse is فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُ الْيَتِيمِ. He is the one who repels the orphan. He is the one that pushes the orphan away. So the word يَدُعُ in this verse means that without hesitation, Abu Jahl would push the orphans away. He was a heartless man. Abu Jahl didn't really care. He didn't care about anyone beside himself. Like I previously mentioned, that he would take advantage of those in the final moment and deprive the orphan children from the rightful ownership of what their father had left them. Abu Jahl, he didn't care about anything. He just wanted more wealth, money. He didn't care about the orphans or the person on the deathbed. He never had a heart. And we know the virtues of caring for an orphan. I did mention in the start of this lesson that the Prophet said a person who takes care of an orphan will be with me in paradise, and he put his index finger and middle finger together. The Prophet also said, whoever caresses the head of an orphan, whoever strokes the head of an orphan with affection, solely for the sake of Allah, with good intention, yes, a good deed will be written to his account or to her account for every hair which his hand passed over. So if you stroke the head of an orphan, yes, with the intention of affection and solely for the sake of Allah, only for Allah, then a good deed will be written for every hair your hand touched. In another hadith, the Prophet he advised a hard-hearted man, a man who had a hard heart, not soft-hearted, a hard-hearted man came to the Prophet and asked for advice. And the Prophet said to stroke his hand over the head of an orphan. It will soften your heart. Now, Abu Jahl's evil, it does not end on this verse. The next verse is also regarding Abu Jahl as well. So Abu Jahl didn't just stop people. He just didn't stop. He just didn't push away orphans. He stopped other people from giving food to the poor and needy. As you look at the third verse, وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ, and who does not encourage feeding the poor. So he used to refuse to help the needy, orphan, and poor, and that's cruel enough. But he went an extra mile and extra step by. He would tell people not to help the poor. Yes, he did not want to see other people helping the poor orphans as well. Cruel and heartless this man was. He didn't want to help them himself, and he didn't want others to help them. Okay, he didn't like it when others would try to help the orphans and the poor. So these three verses, verse 1, verse 2, and verse 3, are regarding Abu Jahl. So I will just repeat them quickly again. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you seen the person who denies the day of judgment? Abu Jahl used to deny the day of judgment. He didn't care about the punishment. فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُ الْيَتِيمِ. He is the one who pushes the orphans away. He is the one who repels the orphan. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And the one who does not encourage feeding the poor. Any questions with the first three verses? Are we okay to move on? If there's something you didn't understand in the first three verses, do let me know, inshallah. If not, inshallah, we can move on to the next four verses. So like I mentioned in the beginning, the first three verses were regarding Abu Jahl. Moving on to verse number 4, verse number 5, and verse number 6, we'll do them three verses together. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Destruction be to those performers of Salah. So Allah is saying destruction. May those people who perform Salah be destructed, be destroyed. Why? الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Who neglect their Salah. الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ. And who want to be seen. So let's talk about the three verses. So verse 4, 5, and 6 are about a man called Umayyah bin Khalaf. He was the leader of the Munafiqun, the hypocrites. Does anyone know who the Munafiqun are? Who are the hypocrites? What did they do? Anyone? Anyone know about that? Munafiqun, the Munafiqeen, anyone know about them? They are those who outwardly they will show that they're Muslims. They will act like Muslims, but inside they're not Muslim. Okay, they would come to the prayer. They would come to the prayer and praise Allah, but inside they're not Muslims. Yes, very good. Like two-faced people. Okay, outwardly they would show people that they're Muslim, but inside they're not Muslim. They would just listen to what the Muslims say and they would go and tell the disbelievers. So these verses describe the characteristics of the hypocrites who would only perform salah when they need to show people that they are sincere believers. So these verses are also for those Muslims who neglect the salah. Now we did cover the 6 types of people who fall under neglecting salah. We already covered them just a few minutes ago. We need to become full-time Muslims and not part-time Muslims. Okay. The reason I'm saying this is because some Muslims only worship Allah in Ramadan. Okay, so why only worship Him in Ramadan? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always watching you in all 12 months, not only in Ramadan. Why do people forget Him? Some people only pray Jumu'ah and Eid. What about the 5 salahs which is obligatory upon you? Some only recite the Quran on blessed days and then they leave it on the shelf or cupboard. Remember, the Quran is for yourself and not for your shelf. And Allah says in Surah Baqarah, verse 208, يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة. All you who believe, enter Islam completely. Do all the actions. Don't just do a few things. You're not a part-time Muslim, you're a full-time Muslim. You have to do all the prayers. You have to pray all the prayers, not just Jumu'ah and Eid. You have to be a proper Muslim for all 12 months, not just in Ramadan. You have to recite the Quran every single day and make it a part of your full every single day, not just on blessed days in Ramadan or on the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah or the last 10 nights of Ramadan. You're going to recite. No. If you look at the masajid, if you look at the masjids, they are full during the month of Ramadan, but the same masjid will remain empty throughout the remainder of the year. Now, Allah says, so such people, yes, they will fall under destruction. Those people who just show others to pray, or those people who just pray sometimes, or the munafiqun, those people who just show off to pray. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Sahun means to neglect. So verse 6 is about those who pray just to show others. الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ. Some people who just pray to show others. And that's what the munafiqun would do. They would just perform salah to show other people. Now listen to this carefully, that doing good deeds to please someone other than Allah is minor shirk. It's like ascribing partners with Allah. Because the Prophet ﷺ said the same, he said in a hadith, من صلى يرائي فقد أشرك ومن صام يرائي فقد أشرك ومن تصدق يرائي فقد أشرك. Whoever performs prayer to show off has committed shirk. Whoever performs prayer to show off has committed shirk. And whoever fasts to show off has committed shirk. And whoever gives in charity to show off has committed shirk. And we know that shirk is the only sin Allah doesn't forgive. This isn't the major shirk when you ascribe partners with Allah. This is a minor shirk. Okay? It is when an act of worship is carried out for anyone else other than Allah. So on the Day of Judgment, Allah will order such a person to go and get the reward from the one who they did the good action for. The intention is key in everything we do. You know, for example, let me give you some examples. Like imagine a person, when they pray by themselves in the room alone, they pray the Salah, say the 4 rakat prayer in 4 minutes. Imagine you're praying now and your parents are in the room and you're lengthening your prayer to 6 to 10 minutes just to show them that you pray so nicely, you pray with so much concentration. Now you're doing that to please your parents, not Allah. Your prayer should be the same when you're praying alone in your room, when you're praying in the masjid full of people, when you're praying in a room full of people at home. Wherever you're praying, your prayer should always be the same because Allah is always watching you. You have to pray for Allah and no one else. So remember that. If you do anything for someone else other than Allah, it won't be accepted. Fast just to show off, it won't be accepted. You give charity just in front of people just to show off that you're rich and you're giving lots of charity. No, it won't be accepted. Rather give it secretly. And even if you give £1 secretly without anyone knowing, is better than you giving £1,000,000 in charity and showing off and boasting about it. Why do you want people to boast about it? You'd rather have the angels boast about you in front of Allah. And the Prophet said that all actions and actions are judged by intentions. Our intentions reach Allah, not our actions. So sometimes people do a good action, but the intention is bad. Yes, sometimes people do a good action, but the intention is bad, so they don't get a reward. So, for example, sometimes people go to the masjid. It's a good action, but the intention is just to go to the masjid, maybe to use the masjid Wi-Fi, or just to sit and meet the friends, or just to eat after a talk. They don't have no intention to go to do good, but they don't get no reward for that. Some people, they do a bad action, but with a good intention. I mean, for example, maybe going to the pub is a bad action. What if you went to the pub and your intention was to take a person out who's been maybe drinking, maybe a friend, maybe a Muslim brother or sister, they're drinking and you want to take them out from there, you want to explain to them. It's a good intention. You might get a reward for that now. That's how Allah's reward system is amazing. If you make intention to do something good, Allah already gives you one reward. And when you do that good action, Allah gives you 10 more rewards. So you get 11 rewards just by making an intention. Oh, okay, I make intention, inshallah, when I go to the masjid, I'm going to give £10. You make the intention, firm intention, Allah's going to give you that reward. When you do the action by giving that £10, Allah will give you another 10 rewards. Whereas making an intention of something evil, you don't get the sin if you make the intention. When you do the sin, Allah only gives you one sin. And if you follow that sin up with a good deed, Allah wipes away your sin. Amazing. And scholars have said that they fear the intentions as it fluctuates. Intentions go up and down. Sometimes small actions are exalted due to a good intention, and sometimes big actions are destroyed due to a bad intention. Always think about your intention. Okay? Always think about, why am I doing this action? Okay? What is the reason for me doing this action? Always think about it. And there are two conditions that need to be met in order for a deed to be accepted. Number one is the deed needs to be carried out with sincerity. Any action, any good action you do, it has to be carried out with sincerity. And number two is it needs to be in accordance to the sunnah of the Holy Prophet. So these two things have to be met for a deed to be accepted. It has to be done with sincerity, and it has to be from the sunnah of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That moves us on to our last verse, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ, and who refuse to give even minor articles. Ma'un is derived from a word which is ma'an, which refers to things of insignificant price that people, like especially neighbors, take from each other, okay, like necessities in life. You can borrow something from a neighbor and they can give it back. Just imagine someone's Hoover stopped working. You go to your neighbor's house, you borrow the Hoover, you give it back. You don't lose anything out of giving this Hoover to someone, okay? Or someone wants to use a bowl from your house, you give it to them. Someone wants to use a spoon from your house. Someone wants to use something else from your house. They borrow and they give it back. But these people, yes, they would refuse to even give things like that. Now, Aisha radiallahu anha once asked the Prophet, what are those things that if someone asks you for, you can't refuse? The Prophet said 3 things. So the 3 things if someone asks you for, you can't say no. Number one is water. If someone asks you for water, the Prophet said you have to give it. Number two is salt. Number three is fire. So Aisha radiallahu anha said, we can understand water, but what about salt and fire? The Prophet said, all the food a person flavors and eats with salt, okay? All the food we eat, yes, it has salt in it. Without salt, the food will taste bland. And if you give someone salt, you get the reward of it. Similarly, all the dishes that you prepare, you have to prepare it by cooking with fire. So you also get a reward for giving someone matchsticks or a lighter to light up a fire for them to cook. Now, if a person is stingy and withholds such items, this person would lack in faith. The iman is low, especially when our neighbors ask us. You know, our neighbors have a great right over us. We need to fulfill this right. Our Prophet said, Jibril kept urging me, okay, about neighbors. Okay, Jibril kept urging me that neighbors should be treated nicely, okay, until I thought he would make them heirs, he would make them inheritors. Prophet is saying that Jibril kept urging me regarding the rights of neighbors, regarding neighbors, until I thought they would become the inheritors of my wealth. So our neighbors have a great right over us. Okay, a person whose neighbor is not saved from the mischief is not a complete believer. If we know our neighbors are struggling financially or with any other issues, we should try to help them, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim. Now, according to some scholars, ma'un refers to zakat, as zakat is only 2.5%. It's nothing from our wealth. Only 2.5% wealth we have to give for zakat. But even after that, a lot of Muslims fail to give it. If all Muslims gave the zakat properly, there will be no poverty on this earth. Now, during the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, everyone gave the zakat properly. And the outcome of this was that there was no poverty on this earth. There was no poor people on this earth. To the extent that there was no one people could pay the zakat to. People who took zakat at night, overnight, they became rich, that they couldn't take zakat the next day. And that and giving zakat properly also stops the poor people from stealing. People don't need to steal anymore if they have received enough zakat. The problem is 2.5% is nothing. It's only a 40th of your wealth. But Muslims still refuse to give zakat. That is the end of the summary of the surah. We'll go over some lessons, inshallah. Is there anything you didn't understand you want me to repeat again? So quick breakdown. The first three verses were regarding Abu Jahl. The fourth, fifth, and sixth verse were regarding Umayyah bin Khalaf, the leader of the hypocrites. And what they would do, they would also withhold and refuse to give people minor articles. Things that you can give to your neighbor, things you can give to someone without hesitation. You can let someone borrow a Hoover, you can let someone borrow a pot, right? Inshallah, we're going to move on to the lessons of the surah, inshallah. We have a question. So our neighbors, they have a great right over us. The Prophet said that Jibril kept coming to me until I thought that neighbors would become our heirs. You know, when a person passes away, yes, it's been fixed by Allah that this like a quarter will be given, for example, to the son, and this much to the daughter, and this much to the wife. The person thought that the neighbors would be included because Jibril kept coming and talking about the neighbors, the rights of neighbors. And the Prophet said that three things you are not allowed to say no. If someone asks you for three things, you have to give. You can't refuse. One is water, salt, and fire. Water you can understand. Salt because of cooking food. The taste of food comes from salt. Without salt, it's bland. And fire because it helps you cook the item. Okay. Now moving on to the lessons from Suramar, inshallah. The first lesson we can learn is concentration in Salah. I will mention some tips to help you increase your concentration in Salah. I will advise you to write these tips down, inshallah. Number one, so these tips will inshallah help you increase your concentration in Salah. Number one is don't rush into your prayer. Don't rush. Sit on your prayer mat and get yourself ready physically, mentally, and spiritually. So how can you get yourself ready? You can recite some Quran, do some dhikr, read Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. Empty your thoughts. Definitely helped in increasing your concentration in Salah. If someone rushes into Salah after playing football, what would that person be doing? They will be sweating, panting, thinking what he or she could have done better on the pitch. Likewise, if someone comes straight after watching a movie or eating, will not be able to focus much. Now, think about if you were invited by the Queen, would you play football just before you go to visit the Queen? Would you rush or would you prepare yourself 2, 3 hours early? You would shower, iron your clothes, put your best perfume on. Yes? Why? Just to meet the creation of Allah, just to meet a Queen. You're doing so much. Why not prepare yourself even better when meeting the Creator, the King of all kings? Think about it. Okay, some people just rush into prayer. They're doing something, I know it's prayer time, they quickly stop, pray, and they come back. The mind is absent from prayer. You have to prepare yourself. You only get to meet Allah 5 times a day. This is your private conversation between you and Allah. Make it count. So this is the tip number one, that don't rush into prayer. Rush other things for prayer, but don't rush the prayer for other things. Number two is, brothers, you should try your utmost best to pray in the masjid. And sisters, try to appoint a little area for prayer and worship, a little corner of a room. Or if you have a small room that you're not using, keep it for worship and prayer. Try to keep that room empty. Try to keep the walls empty. Okay? So just when you go in there, there's no distraction for you. The masjid is a place of worship, contentment, and it's quiet in comparison to praying at home, which is full of distractions, such as posters on the wall, paintings, and stuff like that, noise. Also, praying in the masjid, your reward is multiplied by 27 times. And you cannot rush your prayer as you're following the Imam. Also, praying in the masjid is harder for shaitan to distract you. Let me give you an example so you understand it better. If there was a lonely sheep strolling, yeah, there's a lonely sheep that's walking, it becomes an easy prey for a wolf. It becomes an easy target for a wolf. However, if there is a herd of sheep, for example, there's 40 sheep walking, now that it's not easy for the wolf anymore. Similarly, shaitan finds it easy to distract the person who's praying alone in comparison to those who pray in a congregation in a group. He finds it hard to distract people who are praying together in a group. So try to pray in jama'ah, in congregation, in your masjid. If you can't, then try to appoint a prayer room or prayer corner in your house. Only worship takes place there. Try to keep the walls around the area empty. When you're praying salah there, make sure no one's in the room. No one can make noise. No one can distract you. Put your phone away. Everything. And just give it all. Give your full concentration, your full time, and your full effort towards Allah. Point number three and tip number three is pray as if it is your last prayer. Imagine this is the last time you are standing in front of Allah. Imagine this is the last time you're praying. This is the last ruku you will do. This is the last sajda you will perform. This is the last time you are standing in front of Allah. How would you pray? So pray every prayer like your last prayer. Pray like that, inshallah, your salah, your concentration, yes, your actions in salah, you will improve. Remember these little points, that don't rush into prayer, okay? Don't just watch a movie or you watch a YouTube video and then you rush to prayer. No, you're going to be thinking about what you watch. When you come to the masjid, don't start talking to people. Sit there, sit quietly, prepare yourself mentally, physically, spiritually for the salah. Number two was try to go to the masjid or try to pray in a place where there's no distraction at all. Number three was to pray as if this was your last prayer. And another lesson we can learn from this is passion for salah. We should have passion to pray Salah. We should strive. We should look forward to praying Salah. Not like, oh, again. No. We should look forward to praying Salah. The Sahaba would stop their work immediately when the Adhan was called. When the Adhan is called, we should stop doing what we're doing and go to the masjid or go and pray. A scholar named Sufyan Thawri, he states that do not become like the person who has to be called for Salah via Adhan. Rather, you should have already hastened towards a prayer before, because it is an obligation. You shouldn't just wait for the Adhan. Now, a tabi'in named Sa'id bin Musayyib, tabi'in are those people who saw the Sahaba. So, Sahaba are those people who saw the Prophet ﷺ whilst they were Muslim and they died as a Muslim. Tabi'in are those people who saw the Sahaba, okay, in their life with the naked eye, and they died as a Muslim. So, a famous tabi'in, a leader of the tabi'in, he was the son-in-law of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu as well. His name was Sa'id bin Musayyib. He says, it has never been that the adhan has been called out and I have not already been in the masjid. And this was my practice for 40 years. For 40 years, he was already in the masjid for every salah, all 5 salahs, every day for 40 years. He was already in the masjid before the adhan was called out. These people, there's many, many more examples, but time doesn't allow us to talk about all of them. These people, they valued the salah so much, and due to this, they were able to achieve success in whatever they did. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala embody this passion for salah in each and every one of us. I mean, another lesson we can learn is to look after the orphans. Okay, we learn about the virtues of looking after an orphan. Allah speaks about those who harshly rebuke the orphan and needy in Surah Fajr. Allah says, كَلَّا بَلْ لَا تُكْرِمُونَ الْيَتِيمَ وَلَا تَحَاضُّونَ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ وَتَأْكُلُونَ التُّرَاثَ أَكْلًا لَمًّا وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. Allah says, no, but you do not honor the orphan and do not encourage one another to feed the needy, and you eat all the inheritance with greed, and you love wealth with immense love. So Allah talks about orphans in many places in the Quran. We have three more lessons left, inshallah, before we wrap the lesson up, which shouldn't be too long. The second lesson we have on the board is sincerity of intention should be the core of every action. So intention and sincerity is the key in every action we perform. So remember, our actions don't go to Allah, our intentions go to Allah. Always revisit your intentions. Our intentions fluctuate. Yes, it goes up and down. We start something with a good intention, and slowly this intention is overpowered by wrong things such as fame, showing off, insincerity. Remember that good deeds should not be done for name and fame. For example, imagine someone started this charity work. They were very small. They started this charity work. When they started getting famous, now his intention or her intention has changed. It's more about fame and going on TV and being spoken about by people. Like, oh, this person is doing this person is doing that. No, always revisit your intention and remember the first intention. Why did you start doing this action? Why did you start this project? Always revisit your intention. Okay, remember that good deeds should not be done for name and fame. If you do it for name and fame, then on the day of judgment you will have shame. Okay, you will get no reward for these deeds you have done. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us firm and steadfast on carrying out actions with a good and sincere intention. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Our second to last lesson is staying in hell eternally is for disbelievers and hypocrites. A sinful Muslim will enter paradise after being punished for his sins. Now, staying in hell, yes, is for disbelievers and hypocrites. So, a sinful Muslim will enter paradise after being punished for his or her sins. The Jahannam for Muslims is not a form of punishment, rather, is like a cleansing session. Okay, and Allah is so merciful that you know that the last person to enter Jannah, how big will be the Jannah? Does anyone know? We did speak about this in our previous lesson that the last person to enter Jannah, how big would the Jannah be? Anyone? The last person to enter Jannah, the Jannah would be 10 times bigger than this earth. Good guess, mashallah, but it's 10 times bigger than this earth. Imagine that this is the last person to enter Jannah. This is the person who sinned the most. After this person enters Jannah from Jahannam, the doors of Jannah will be closed. Even then, Allah is so merciful, He will give this person a Jannah which is 10 times bigger than this earth. Another lesson we learn is to not hold on to things, okay? To let people, especially our neighbors, to let them borrow things, okay? Maybe one day when you are in need, your neighbor would help you as well. Now you'll have different types of neighbors, right? So conduct yourself with each type accordingly. Remember the story of our Prophet ﷺ's neighbor. Does anyone remember the story of the Prophet ﷺ's neighbor? What she used to do? Anyone? The Prophet had a neighbor. What did she used to do? Anyone knows the story? The Prophet had a neighbor and she would throw rubbish in front of him. Okay, she would throw tree barks. She would try to harm the Prophet, make it difficult for him to walk. She would constantly do this. And one day he came at his house and there was no rubbish there. Second day, no rubbish there. Many days went by and there was no rubbish there. There was something different for him because she would do this all the time, rubbish. Day after day, there would be rubbish. For a long time, weeks went by, there was no rubbish. Until he found out that she's ill, she's in hospital. He went to visit her. Now, she was probably thinking, she was expecting a person to be the last person to come visit her after what she has done, after all her horrible actions. And because he came to visit her, she accepted Islam. He didn't have to give her speeches. He didn't have to give her motivational and inspirational talks. It was how he conducted himself. So our actions speak louder than words. In another hadith, the Prophet said, he advised Abu Dhar to add some water to the gravy that was cooked so the neighbors could also eat from it. Find out about your neighbors. If they're struggling with something, help them, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim. You might think, oh, they're living in England or they're living in America or living in this country. Oh, everyone's rich. No, you might never know it, that your neighbor's struggling with food. They probably only have one meal a day because they don't have enough money to pay the bills and everything. And be considerate about them. Find out, what if your neighbors, they do night shifts? What if they work at night and in the day they're sleeping? Make sure that you don't make too much noise through the day or you're going to disturb them. If they are ill or the loved ones are ill or the loved ones pass away or someone of your neighbor pass away, go visit them. Doesn't matter if they're Muslim or not. Go visit them. Who knows, one day, because of your good manners, they might accept Islam. But remember that you have to treat each neighbor differently. And our neighbors have many rights. Now, neighbors can fall into three categories. Okay, category number one, if your neighbor is a Muslim and a relative and your neighbor, they deserve the most rights. They have three rights upon you. They're a Muslim, they're your relative, and their neighbor. Second one is they're a Muslim and they're your neighbor. Yes, they deserve rights from you as well. And the third category is they're not a Muslim, but they're your neighbor. Even non-Muslim neighbors, you should treat them. Okay, you should treat them well. Look after them. The elderly and they can't go out for shopping, for example, or they're struggling. You should go and help them with shopping. Pick their bags up for them. Okay, drop them off if they have hospital visits. If there's no one that's caring for them, go help them out. Who knows? Okay, these actions could be the reason, okay, they are guided to Islam. We'll end it with this last story that the poor people of the past, they were so giving to the neighbors. Okay, that once a poor household, they gave a goat's head to their neighbor. They thought that the neighbor is more deserving of this goat's head. A goat head has really any meat on it. They thought, you know what, our neighbor is more poor. Even though they were poor themselves, they thought that the neighbor is more poor and the neighbor is more deserving of this goat head. So they gave it to the neighbor until it was passed on to the next person, to the next neighbor, and the next neighbor, and it was passed around the full village until it came back to the original owner, the first person to pass on this head, this goat's head. and they got the reward for giving it out, and they get to keep the head as well. Okay, so this is how they were. There's a story about there were some people who were very thirsty. Yes, they were close to dying out of thirst. When the first person was approached with water, he said, "Give it to the person next to me. Give it to the neighbor next to me. He is more deserving of it." They went to that person. He said, "Go give it to the person next to me." And they kept going like that until the last person they came to had already passed away. And they came back to the previous person, and the previous person, everyone had already passed away because they gave up everything for the neighbor. But we withhold things from our neighbor. We don't like sharing things. We know the story about the Sahaba. There was one Sahabi who came, who was struggling. He never had no food. And the Prophet said, "Who would feed this person today?" And a Sahabi put his hand up. And this Sahabi had rarely any food at home himself. So when he went home, he told his wife, "Just act like you're cooking something," and the children would cry and they would fall asleep. So she was acting like she's cooking something in the pot. The children were crying out of hunger and they got tired and they went to sleep. And they got a bit of food. The food is enough for only one person. And how would the husband, how would the Sahabi feed the guest? So what they did was they put all the food on the guest plate. Yes, and they turned off their lamp, acting like the lamp is not working. And they were making sounds with the mouth like they're eating, making sounds like eating. And the Sahabi who was the guest, the Sahabi who was starving, the guest, he ate to his fill, thinking that the family has, thinking that the people in front of him are eating. Okay, this is how they were. They will give everything up for their fellow brothers and sisters of Islam. They will give everything up for the neighbors. Okay, so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to act upon everything that was taught today. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. A quick recap of the surah. So the first three verses were regarding Abu Jahl because he would intend to do very evil actions. He would approach people when they're on the deathbed with the intention to take all the wealth away. He would lie to them and give them false promises that I will look after your orphan children. Okay, he would say to them that look, I'm a chief of the Quraysh. I'm a chief of Makkah. I will look after your children when you pass away. You have no one else to trust. And when he would get the wealth, the person had passed away, he would refuse to give it back. And when the Prophet told him, if you don't do that, you will face the consequences on the day of judgment, he didn't care, he denied it. He would push the orphans away. Not only push them away, yes, he would tell others not to help. He wouldn't encourage others to help feed the poor. And then we spoke about salah, negligence in salah, the different types of negligence. Okay, neglecting salah, and how the munafiqun, what they would do. And one point I mentioned is that pray salah the same everywhere. Your prayer alone in the room, your prayer alone at night, your prayer in front with your family, your prayer in the masjid should always be the same because Allah is always watching. Just like you'll prepare yourself when you go to visit the Queen, you'll prepare yourself, you'll wear your best clothes. Yes, you'll get ready 2, 3 hours early, you'll arrive on time. Yes, just to meet the creation of Allah. Why don't you prepare yourself better to meet the Creator, the one who created this Queen? Yes, the King of all kings. Don't rush to prayer. Remember the point and the tips I mentioned, how to concentrate in Salah better. Pray this Salah as it's your last prayer. Imagine this is your last prayer. You won't pray anymore after this. Okay? Try to attend the masjid. If you're not, try to have a corner in the house where you only use for worshipping. And the last verse was وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ, those who refuse to even give minor articles. Don't be stingy, okay? Give to charity. Make sure you give your 2.5% of zakah every single year. Those who withhold the zakah, the punishment is really, really severe. We'll leave it till then, inshallah. Anyone have any questions? If not, Jazakumullah khairan for joining. Hope it was beneficial for everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.